ICC requested an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his defense chief, and three Hamas leaders over alleged war crimes. This is a decision that sent shockwaves all across the world, and it has, gotten countries in a bit of a pickle, particularly countries that are, on the side of Israel, that are supporting Israel, the USA, some of the EU countries. But I think a move particularly appreciated by us here in South Africa and the rest of the world, people that value freedom, justice, and accountability from world leaders. And we'll be speaking about this very, very bold move by the ICC with a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Political Science at the University of Pretoria, Dr. Quraysha Ismail Sooliman, who's joining us via StreamYard audio. Salamu alaikum, Dr. Sooliman. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Salam Media.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak to you, and thank you for inviting me.
I mean, the pleasure is all ours. I mean, very, very bold move made by the ICC, and I think a move that came very unexpected. Call a request for a warrant of arrest for Benjamin Netanyahu, and I think it also caught him a bit off guard. What can we deduce from it? What can we make of this very, very bold move by the ICC?
Yeah, well, it is certainly bold, but it is also, in a way, it reflects the compromised integrity, because the ICC has been investigating the Israeli war crimes, and it's slow genocide inside of Palestine, because it's a slow genocide that was continuing from 1948 until October the 7th. And that genocide just accelerated post 7th October. So when I speak of the compromised integrity, it's because they've had this extensive time. They're not investigating since 1948, but since Palestine, basically referred itself to the ICC, which was in 2018. So there's been more than enough time for the ICC to investigate these crimes. And then only 8 months into the genocide, it takes a step. Whereas, as Minister Pandros continuously said, that, after the case was basically presented to the ICC in the case of Russia and Putin, within 3 weeks they had made a decision. So although it is a bold move, we must not exclude that context also. There's certainly a lot of politicking that's going on here. And the only reason possibly that they have come to this decision is because if they don't, they literally make themselves irrelevant. And global South countries are watching this, and today's decision which will come out of the ICJ. And I do hope that it is a positive decision from the ICJ, because if it doesn't, then I also then pray that the global South countries, especially led by BRICS Plus, will make the strong move then to break away from the UN and completely dismantle that entire situation and all of its institutions, and hopefully set up something different, perhaps maybe in China. That would be the way forward for all of us.
And just on the ICC itself, I mean, is there still credibility to that institution? Is there still an organization, that we can still trust, that, they will enforce, the rule of law? And also just looking at, its track record, there are some cases, one even involving us, South Africa, with, the ICC and the president of South Sudan, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a lot of controversy recently. Vladimir Putin also, a warrant of arrest was issued for him. And, all of these talks of double standards when it comes to leaders of the global South and the global, East and North, and how they react to how they treat those leaders. Is there still credibility, in a nutshell, with the ICC?
So I think for all of us, particularly, the credibility will depend on whether the warrants are actually arrest. Remember, Karim Khan has said that he's seeking warrants for the arrest. He hasn't said that the warrants have been issued as yet. So how quick those warrants will be issued, and if at all they will be issued, that is going to determine the credibility of the ICC. And yes, but he himself said in an interview with CNN, when Kushir Amanpour was interviewing him, he said that, he was under threats from Western leaders, and a prominent Western leader told him that the ICC was built for Africa and thugs like Putin. So the comments that South Africa has made, at that time, at the time of Bashir's warrant arrest, at the timing of Putin's warrant of arrest, just when South Africa was about to host the BRICS summit, if you remember, it clearly points that South Africa was correct in the arguments and in its defense of what it had said. Now, many years ago, I can't even remember how many years ago, I had an interview with Professor Dire Cladi, who is now one of the judges, permanent judges on the ICC. And I questioned him also about Sudan and the warrant of arrest. And he clearly explained that there were two positions. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if anybody's interested, they can watch the video. It's on YouTube and you'll find it there. So there's many aspects to what the reality is and how Western media, and of course those with a very particular agenda, portray that narrative, as we've seen exactly with what's happened with Palestine and Palestinian humanity and the dehumanization of the Palestinians by a controlled narrative and forced consensus that's created about, Palestinians being terrorists and Muslims being terrorists. So the same thing has been done with regards to the warrants that have been issued in the ICC for Bashir, with a warrant that has been issued for Putin. And what is significant about the warrant that has been issued for Putin, if you do a comparison of what Putin is being charged with and what Netanyahu is being charged with, well, there I'll give the ICC credibility, okay?
Yeah.
Because that certainly shows that Putin is the lesser devil, and that the greatest criminal, of course, is Netanyahu and Gallant. So they did well in that regard. I also do believe that perhaps these frivolous charges that they put against Hamas about the sexual scandals, etc., they put it there just to appease the narrative of the West, but knowing full well that those charges will not be able to be proved. And hopefully then that will continue towards the exoneration of the resistance movement. But again, coming to your question of credibility, we'll only be able to assert that once those warrants are actually issued.
I want to speak a bit about, diplomacy and what this move, if those warrant of arrest are, credited and, they are released. Israel has urged what it called, quote unquote, nations of the civilized world to refuse to implement any international criminal court arrest warrants issued against its leaders, Benjamin Netanyahu obviously being the face of that. We've seen countries such as France, Germany, and to some extent the USA saying, if, those warrants are granted, they will essentially arrest Netanyahu and deport him. And what does this do to diplomacy, Israel? Are we seeing, a move where they'll be increasingly isolated and desperate for support from those that traditionally would consider their allies?
Yeah, certainly you've nailed it. They are exceptionally desperate. And my God, are they still claiming that they are civilized? Because if this is their definition of civilization, I definitely don't want to belong to that definition. You understand? And I think by extension, the majority of the world's people do not want to be in that definition of civilization. So no, they are desperately, genuinely desperate. But alhamdulillah, in a way, this move by the ICC has actually just created the benchmark for establishing which of the racist colonial and settler colonial European states actually put their money where their mouth is. Are they going to now show their true colors, or are they going to show a commitment to real change and the recognition of the equality of all people? I mean, it is significant that Belgium has been supporting South Africa at the ICJ, has been pushing the Palestinian question significantly in favor of the Palestinians. You must remember, Belgium has a terrible history of what it has done in the Congo, right? And it's now we can genuinely say, when Belgium says never again, Belgium meant it, because they have put their money where their mouth is, which is the opposite of what Germany has done. So Germany has continued its perpetuation and support for genocide. It is also significantly responsible for this genocide because it has put its problems and made the Palestinians the victims of its own problems, of Germany's problems, I mean. So whether the rest of the European states are going to come to the party now, all of this will depend, and that alone will tell us, exactly where the humanity, the morality, the ethics, and the actual standing of Europe is. What I'm happy about is that hopefully this will open the eyes of the Muslim youth, the Muslim generations who have been so obsessed with Europe and America, as if they are the be end and all of the absolute standard by which you set yourself, you set your life, you aspire to. Even Africans, Africans don't want to be African. They want to be white. They want to be European. They want to be American. And I do hope that this, opens their eyes and what's happening in the rest of Africa. If you look at Senegal, Burkina Faso, Mali, all of these new leaders who are emerging and establishing their Pan-Africanism and their identity. So this particular thing about Gaza, this genocide in Gaza, has actually turned the world upside down. And for all of us, I hope that it is a good realization of our own worth, our value, of what we have, what we should aspire to, and what we should genuinely break away from.
No, definitely. I think you nailed it there. And just lastly, from a South African point of view, does this move give any, more, not that it needs it, but more credibility to that genocide case that we have presented against Israel at the ICJ?
Oh, certainly. Certainly it does. And we're hoping that it also will influence the decision that comes out of the ICJ today. Again, like I said, if it doesn't, I mean, even a blind man can see what is happening. Then it's really time to throw away these instruments. It's time to rebel. It's time to rebel against the international system and to create our own. Yeah, we need to become radical in the international system. Not that we aren't. We're perhaps the most hated by the racists at the moment. But wonderful. I'd rather be hated by a racist than by anybody else. So South Africa is doing excellently. Alhamdulillah, we should be very proud of our country for the footprint that it is established, and we hope that this is a game changer.
Definitely, we're going to leave it there. Dr. Quraysha, Ismail, Sooliman, thank you so much for giving us your time. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam. That was a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Political Science at the University of Pretoria, Dr. Quraysha Ismail Sooliman, just giving us more insight on that really, really bold move by the ICC prosecutor, sending shockwaves all across the world, requesting a warrant of arrest for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and his defense minister, and also some of the Hamas leaders. I think right now it's just a stunning cake. Just wait and see if those warrant of arrest will be granted, and how the Western world and the global North will react to those. Will Benjamin Netanyahu be arrested by those that he considered allies for a very, very long time? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be having our weekly Juma Inspirations with Maulana Ismail Ahmed from the Jamiat Ulama KZN. More after this.